comic books are an important contributing factor in many cases of juvenile.
Look, up in the sky! Faster than a speeding bullet.
Holy, here we go again,
Hello, and welcome to These Guys Have Issues, the podcast where we discuss current topics and issues within the comic book and geek community. I am your host, Carter Hutchison.
I'm your co-host, Mike Thomas.
Mike, it's been a while, man.
It has been a hot minute.
Been a long time since we've had you on the show here, but
it's been a long time since.
Been a long time. But the topic we were doing today, I knew I had to get, a DC guy on. So you were the first person I thought of.
Definitely.
And we're just quarantining here, so we're communicating through Skype. So keeping our social distance miles apart.
Definitely.
But, there was things that needed to be talked about, so we called a meeting of the minds here. So
Nice.
What I wanted to talk about today is DC Comics' new plan for what they're calling 5G. Mike, before I messaged you about this, had you heard about this at all?
So, I've been out of doing this in general for 8 months now. So I haven't actually picked up a comic in, probably since the last time we actually did podcast together. So around 8 months. So I haven't done anything nerdy. I haven't seen anything. I've been really heavily involved in Gundam right now. So
Okay.
all my, I know, random, right? So
What
all
series?
of my, so I got done watching Gundam Mobile Suit Origin. I texted you about that the other day.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that
good.
was so good, and it's so well done.
Mhm.
But then I got into the convolutedness of Gundam UC and Gundam Unicorn.
I have not seen UC, but Gundam Unicorn is really good.
Yeah, so it has the Unicorn Gundam in it. It's not Gundam Unicorn, so it kind of throws everybody off when you're first watching it. You're
Yeah.
wait, this is not Gundam Unicorn. And so I finished that yesterday, and so now I'm going to watch Gundam Wing. I'm trying to get all the Gundams that are on the streaming services right now.
Gundam Wing does not hold up well as an
Oh,
adult.
it does not.
No,
it does
it's
not.
very teen drama-y. It's like, what if Degrassi was with some giant robots?
Well, if you think that that's bad, then you should go watch Gundam UC because it's 10 times worse. And it was made in
I'm good.
2015. So
I'm good. The original Gundam series is my favorite, when they
Yeah.
split them up into the movies.
Yeah.
And so Origins kind of takes from that too.
Yeah,
But we're here
yeah.
to talk about DC Comics.
Sorry, yeah, I went on a
No,
tangent.
I went
But-
down that road. I love some Gundam. But
But
yeah,
no,
so I guess you hadn't heard anything really.
No, when you sent me that article, I was like, what the heck is this? And I read the article and I was like, oh my gosh. Because at first when you sent it to me, I was like, oh, this is just I'm getting really tired of comic book companies restarting their whole lineup again. The New 52,
And that's
I understand.
kind of what's going on here again.
Yeah, the
kind
New
of.
52 was, something to really get excited about, and it got the comic book community talking because Marvel was thinking
did
about
that.
relaunching theirs, but the whole
Right.
Rebirth storyline was I guess it wasn't necessarily groundbreaking, but the way that they did it to end the New 52 was
I feel
awesome.
like it is. Yeah, agreed. I love Rebirth. So I'm sad to see the era of Rebirth apparently being on its way out. But yeah, no, I still keep a pretty solid foot in any kind of comic book news, and most of this stuff had escaped me still. Now I had heard that they were planning on doing a Crisis this summer, but that's usually every summer there's some kind of big, Crisis
Yeah.
event thing. But no, I feel like they've been keeping it a little close to the vest, and there haven't really been too many press announcements or anything about it. But I expect that to be changing soon, assuming the coronavirus and Diamond not shipping books for a couple months hasn't, mucked those plans up for them.
Yeah, I think right now the benefit of having streaming services is key. So when DC made their streaming service, last year,
Right.
and it had it just started to take off and wasn't premiering. I feel like if this still goes into the summertime, that will be all right, if you really want to read these books, you're either going to get them delivered to you by your doorstep because you're not going to go pick them up for your comic shop, or you're going to digitally download them. And I feel like a lot of people now have access to that, so they'll be able to do that.
Agreed. And I think they need to go that route too. I'd be fine with paying a little extra on my DC app every month if it meant I got new comics, like they were actually hitting the shelves and stuff that week.
Exactly.
Now,
Yeah.
the comic book retailers would riot over that.
Oh, of course they would.
Like,
Of course they would.
It would look like West Virginia just won a football game. There would be couches on fire and like cars would be flipped over. It would be not a pretty sight.
Oh my gosh.
So I don't know how likely that would be to happen, unfortunately. But yeah, okay. So let's just we'll do our usual quick message from our Patreon here, and then we'll jump into the meat of the podcast. All of Grassroots Comics is funded through our Patreon, patreon.com/grassrootscomics. For as little as $1 a month, you can become part of the Grassroots Comics community, which includes many perks, such as having your name mentioned in this segment of every episode of the podcast, the ability to suggest topics of discussion for shows like These Guys Have Issues, access to the private Grassroots Comics subreddit where members can continue discussions started on the podcast or start their own, behind-the-scenes access to the GRC studio, and early access to digitally released comics and Classic Cartoon Rewind. So it is the goal of all of us here at Grassroots Comics Productions that one day the Patreon is strong enough where we are able to produce the stories, artwork, and stop-motion animation shorts pitched and selected by the Grassroots Comics community. But the only way that becomes possible is with a strong Patreon. So if you feel that the entertainment value you receive from this podcast is at least worth 25 cents, then please become a Patreon contributor today, and with our powers combined, we can have all of our stories heard. All right, now let's get on with the rest of the show. All right, and as always, I'd like to thank our Patreons for today's episode. Devin Hood, Adam Finney, and Gil Diaz. Appreciate it, guys.
Let's go.
Okay, so we're gonna kind of news hound this one a little bit. Okay, that's kind of how I thought the best way to attack, because there's so much to talk about here, right?
Yeah,
so much. So when you're thinking of like a news article or a headline, you know, you want your who, what, where, when, and why. Okay, so the who obviously is DC Comics, right? The what is a relaunch. So when they say 5th generation, that's what the 5G stands for, in case anyone out there was, lagging behind with their LTE setup there.
Do you know the coronavirus is started by 5G? Just to let you know right now.
I have heard that conspiracy theory, and and this is saying a lot. It's one of the dumber things I've heard since the coronavirus happened.
I know,
and
right?
That is
so stupid.
That's a tall order, because a lot of dumb things have happened since then.
That's rich.
God. So saying that they're coming up with a 5th generation obviously means that there have been 4 already. Did you look into that at all? Did you check in to see what the generations were?
I mean, I was kind of confused because it was saying, like, in just Superman's aspect that, you know, I don't know if you want to jump into this yet, but, you know, the article starts out with saying that, like, Jonathan Kent is going to take over the role of Superman, and like,
right. Okay, yeah, no. Let's so we're talking about generations 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, so
right?
like the Silver Age, the Golden Age, that kind of stuff. That's what I kind of took from it.
Right. So they have an actual timeline that's out that I've seen. And so let's just go through that a little bit here so we know what we're talking about.
All right, cool.
And yeah, the article that Mike is referencing is from Bleeding Cool. They've been the ones reporting most of this stuff, and most of it seems to be rumors / unsubstantiated, you know, information. So, you know, take it with a giant grain of salt. But Generation 1, also known as the Dawn of the Heroic Age, is a 24-year window, and it begins with Krypton exploding. So what this is doing is setting that Wonder Woman is the first superhero to appear in the DC universe, and it's through World War II.
Okay.
So you have Wonder Woman appears, Krypton explodes, the JSA forms. Let's see, year 16 of Generation 1 is when Thomas and Martha Wayne are killed. Okay, and then in year 19 of Generation 1, the Senate bans superheroes. So if you read Doomsday Clock, that was in there. All right, and let's see, it ends with the Challengers of the Unknown being formed, which I guess that kind of marks the beginning of the Space Age, which is Generation 2.
Okay.
So Generation 2 begins with Batman and Superman's debut. You have the Justice League of Americas formed. Supergirl arrives. Ra's al Ghul and Talia arrive. Barbara debuts as Batgirl. Dick Grayson obviously debuts as Robin. And the ending of Generation 2 is marked by Crisis on Infinite Earths. Dick Grayson leaving. Right. So that's a pretty big time span. But Dick Grayson leaving to become Nightwing. Jason Todd debuting as Robin. Supergirl dies. Judas Contract, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So Generation 3 is the Age of Crisis. And this is a new Justice League with Wally West and Guy Gardner. Let's see, Jason Todd is murdered. The Killing Joke happens. Death of Superman, 0 Hour, Identity Crisis, Infinite Crisis, and Blackest Night. This is all within
oh my gosh, dude.
Generation 3 is thick.
THICC.
Yeah, man, it's Lizzo thick. And it ends with Flashpoint, which I think that's a pretty nice cutoff point, I would say.
Yeah.
So Generation 4 is the Flashpoint, and it's really just a 5-year window. It's Wildstorm, it's Justice League, Court of Owls, Damian dies, Wonder Woman becomes the God of War, DC Rebirth kind of stuff, Jim Gordon briefly as Batman, and Dark Knight's Metal, and New Age of Heroes, along with Year of the Villain and Hell Arisen. So now that we're up on what the generations are, let's talk about what they're planning on doing in the 5th generation. So as you were saying before, John Kent, who has been introduced already and has been going around as Superboy, he's in Super Sons a lot. He is going to be aged up again because they did already age him. You might have missed that while you were out.
Actually, I stopped reading the Super Sons like issue 15. So okay. I got pretty deep into that before I, haven't had a chance to get
that's a great series
or anything like that. Yeah, it's it's actually my favorite from Rebirth.
Wow, that's saying something.
Yeah,
that's saying something. It's a good.
Granted, I've only read that one's it. So that's why.
It's the only one, but it's my favorite.
That's all. I read a little bit of the Chinese Superman. I can't remember what the name of it was.
Superman or something like that.
Yeah. That one was really cool when it started wise, but I kind of figured out after issue like 7 or 8. So
I mean, Superman Rebirth was really good when it was like Tomasi and Patrick Gleason were on it. Mm-hmm. That was a fantastic book. So essentially what DC is doing in the 5th generation is replacing at least their main heroes, and it appears they're going to be doing this more across the board too. But they're replacing them with either some kind of understudies or some picks that are a little out of left field and some that haven't even been announced yet. So let's tackle the Trinity. Let's tackle the big 3 here: Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman. So we've already talked about Superman, and Superman's probably the most obvious of the picks, right? Like, there was someone that was going to replace Clark Kent as Superman. Your first pick, kid. Yeah, it would probably be John Kent.
Yeah.
So they're aging him up again. They've already done that. Right now, he's a teenager. That's kind of And Bendis did that with some weird space-timey explanation stuff.
Nice.
So I don't really have too much to say about John Kent finally becoming Superman. I am kind of excited to see it. First of all, I like this idea as far as replacing Bruce Wayne as Batman, replacing Diana as Wonder Woman, replacing Clark Kent as Superman. This is something my wife and I have talked about for a long time, that these books have been going for 80-something years, and it might be time to actually pass it down.
Yeah.
Now, some of the picks, I'm not sure if that's exactly where I would go with it, but I think I see why DC would. So I am the one thing I'm excited to see about John being Superman is that, so he's grown up with Clark and with Lois. I want to see how well their teachings have stuck.
Definitely.
You'll actually see what got through.
Yeah, I feel like that Superman's character or Clark Kent's character is very molded after what his parents' philosophies were.
Exactly.
Not just Martha and Jonathan Kent, but his biological parents from Krypton.
Yeah.
Jor-El, and I can't even remember his mom's name.
Laurel.
Laurel, there we go. Jor-El and Laurel. It's like toothbrush or something, toothpaste.
Yeah. Trying to, Laurel.
Exactly.
Cavity.
But like their philosophies put so much on the way Clark and how Clark was, and then also how Superman was.
Mm-hmm.
He tried to be the biggest Boy Scout he possibly could and try to be in between both worlds as Superman, but also struggled with that as Clark Kent. And so now that Jonathan is Superman, or he's going to be Superman, I feel like that the values of what Clark would have bestowed upon him would have not been necessarily the same that Jonathan and Martha Kent did, but more of Laurel and Jor-El, because he is not alone, and Kal-El had to pretty much do this all on his own.
That's a fair point. So yeah, I think that's that part is fairly straightforward. Is John becoming the new Superman, and I am excited to see it. All right, let's talk about the other one here's one that we don't really know yet. But Wonder Woman will be replaced. So no Diana as Wonder Woman anymore. I've heard rumors that this is going to be a LGBTQ character.
Okay.
And I can see that. That makes a lot of sense.
Definitely.
Especially if it's, a Amazonian from Themyscira. It's an island of women. And they even hint at it in the Wonder Woman movie. Right, when her and Steve Trevor on a boat, and there's some book, right?
I'm on a boat,
motherfucker. And the book is talking about sex in some way, and Steve Trevor's like, how do you know what that's like? And Wonder Woman basically says, like, just because I live on an island full of women doesn't mean I haven't had relations.
Oh,
right, yeah. So that makes sense too. And then again, this is something my boss asks all the time. What's the headline? Right? So the headline there would be LGBTQ character as Wonder Woman.
Oh, definitely.
Right.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. And, again, there's no such thing as bad press, right? So that would get a ton of coverage, both negative and positive.
Definitely.
The go woke, go broke crowd on Twitter is going to hate this.
Yeah,
like just all of 5G, they're going to fucking hate it.
I think I'll get into my opinion of what I think 5G will become at the end, like towards the end. But they already introduced Alan Scott in Earth 2 as being the first gay superhero, openly gay superhero in DC. But the thing was, when Earth 2 came out, I thought it was amazing. It was it was really well done. It gave you a different aspect of what superheroes were. Because, just to give a little recap, Earth 2, the Trinity dies fighting Darkseid, but Darkseid doesn't die. And so Cassie also dies. And then Robin is played by Barbara, and she dies, but it's Batman's daughter. Yeah, it's Batman's daughter.
That's cool.
Yeah, and Superman dies, and Wonder Woman dies. So all the main people die. There's no Flash. There's nobody else. It's just them. They called them, what did they call them? Wonders. They called them Wonders instead of superheroes. Okay. Yeah,
that's cool.
And so Alan Scott, he gets the Green Lantern, but it's not necessarily a lantern. It's called the Green, and Solomon Grundy's the Gray, and it's supposed to be like Black Hand's character with a black lantern and stuff like that.
Now the green, as in like the green that's attached to Swamp Thing?
It's yes and no, because if you're looking at the parallels of the green and Swamp Thing's connection is with Earth,
right?
But also in Earth 2, the green is the connection with the Earth as well. Like it's its own entity, but there's other entities, kind of like how there's the willpower entity, there's Parallax, There's
Okay.
I can't remember the other entities, that are with the Lantern Corps, but he
Mhm.
draws his power from the Earth, not necessarily from a lantern.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's
So
cool.
yeah, but anyway, he's the first openly gay character, and they did this back in 2000 and when did they start the New 52? 16?
Sounds right,
No,
right?
2012.
No,
2012
no,
is
no,
when.
no. Yeah, way earlier than that. 2016 was Rebirth.
Yeah, 2012 was when the New 52 started, and when Earth 2 kicked off, everyone was like, Alan Scott's gay, but it was like, it's not like Hal Jordan. Like Alan Scott was this like mystical character in the
Yeah, it was more magic
Justice League,
based.
yeah, Society. So like you don't really get a whole like, yeah, he's the Green Lantern guy. But if Hal Jordan had been, gay and
No, I get
presumed
that.
as
And
that,
this will be a new character, so it's not
yeah,
like Diana. But again, they kind of already did that with Diana. But I'm just saying, I don't see that aspect being reviewed positively by that very vocal minority on Twitter, basically.
yeah, can
I think
understand
people
that.
that are cool with this kind of storytelling far outnumber the people that, are
Oh,
the
well,
go woke, go broke crowd.
you might be
Um,
surprised at the reaction of having that because I don't know. In some aspects of like, if you look at the Wonder Woman movie that's coming out, the new one,
mhm.
the
1984.
1984, yeah, it almost seems like if Trevor hadn't have been part of the first one, that the girl who's supposed to play Kristen Wiig is playing Cheetah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that their love interest,
Oh, interesting.
it kind of portrays it that way. And I've always thought if they were going to ever do something with, we grew up watching Justice League, the animated series. So like her and Bruce, that's always been a thing. And then
Right.
her and Superman has been a thing too,
Yeah.
and then her and Steve. But like, she could be with a girl, and to be honest with you, the character wouldn't change.
No,
Like,
agreed.
she would be the
That's- yeah,
same.
fair point. Right.
But
But again, there's a very vocal minority of the population that hates anything like this. I got in an argument recently with a guy on Twitter that was upset that that Zoe Kravitz had been cast as Catwoman in the next in the Batman, the Rob Pattinson Batman movie. And I was like, what kind of beef do you have with that? Like, she just oozes oozes sexuality. She's gonna be great. And that's when he said exactly. And I want to be like, she's black in the comics from like as early as year one that I can remember.
yeah,
And then here's a big fucking shocker. Eartha Kitt was Catwoman in the fucking 60s.
yeah.
Like,
and Halle Berry was Catwoman.
That's
Catwoman.
yeah, we don't talk about that. But the 60s were what, like over 50 years ago. Over 60 years ago.
The 60s. The 60s were 60 years ago.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous that like people in the 1960s were more progressive than some douchebag on Twitter. Anyways, who cares what those people think? Because they're definitely not going to like the next part where the new Batman is going to be Luke Fox, son of Lucius Fox, which would make this would be the first black Batman. Any thoughts there as far as Luke taking over the mantle?
So you've seen he's called Batwing, right?
Batwing.
Yeah, he's currently Batwing in Rebirth.
Mhm.
I love his costume, the yellow.
It is a cool costume.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
no wings. It looks like he just got off a motorbike, and he's ready to go fight crime.
Bike.
So,
Right. Yeah.
I actually think that's pretty cool, but I'm gonna save that for the end because all of it turns out. I think it's cool that they're trying to do that aspect with him because he hasn't had a tragedy. Like he was just Lucius Fox's son,
Right.
and so where does this vengeance come from?
That might be bad for Lucius Fox.
Like spoiler alert, he's gonna die.
Yeah, that might be bad for him. It's like being an uncle from anyone with spider powers. Like, not good. Don't be that uncle.
Don't be that uncle.
Right.
But like, it's interesting because what's Batman without his parents dying?
Oh yeah, no, totally. That shapes and forms the character. But speaking of spider powers, this makes me think of Miles Morales a lot. And in some ways, it kind of feels like the Warner Brothers executives saw Into the Spider-Verse and were like,
It
well,
was like,
where's our Miles Morales? You know, like,
but so someone's back's like, bro, we got him. His name's Batwing. You just don't
yeah,
do anything with him.
pretty much. Which, to be fair, I'm glad they used Luke Fox instead of Duke Thomas. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. He wasn't
The
Duke
Signal.
he was in the Batman Metal series, right?
Yeah, he's a
Yeah.
Scott Snyder creation. So that
Yeah.
doesn't
But he still had a
change.
yellow suit though, like yellow trim to it.
Right.
But
So I'm glad they did Luke instead of Duke. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie. My first instinct was like, well, why is it Dick Grayson or Damian Wayne? Like, if John is getting aged up to be Superman,
yeah,
why not Damian Wayne as Batman?
maybe because he's too young. I don't know.
I feel like there's a time jump here. Like, I feel like we're gonna, you know how they did the 1 year later thing after New 52?
1 year later.
You remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
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 I think we're gonna get something to the same, but it might be like 10 years later, or it'll be a larger time jump. So I expect Bruce to be like in his 50s
I
when
got you.
this is going on. And that's another thing they said is that I don't think they're necessarily like killing the older characters. But again, what's the headline here? If the headline with Wonder Woman is LGBTQ character as Wonder Woman, this is a black Batman, which is not nothing. That's a big deal.
I mean, bats are black.
Bats are black. Thank you, Mike. Excellent commentary here.
I'm signing off. I'm done.
So that's a little out of left field as far as a pick to me. But again, if you're a studio executive for Warner Brothers and you're sitting in a big office meeting with your new bosses from AT&T, I can kind of see why someone would be like, well, like, why not Luke Fox as Batman? And then someone go, yes, we're doing that. That's happening. Black Batman 2020.
We've already done black. So, like, people forget that there's a storyline where there's a black Superman
In an alternate Earth.
and an alternate Earth, and
In
he's
an
the
alternate
president.
Earth, Mike.
Yeah, but
think-
also in the new 52 Earth 2, there's Val Zod, who is the cousin of Kal-El,
Right.
and he's black, and he's the one who like ends up helping save that whole convoluted storyline at the end, which is like it starts out really good, but then it just anyway. But having just I don't know, because me being Hispanic, there's not that many Hispanic superheroes out there.
Sure. It was like Jaime Reyes.
Yeah, I mean that's it. And he was
Ghost Rider
introduced,
guy.
and he's introduced like the newer age. He was never brought
Right.
from the beginning now.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of prominent black African American superheroes. Black Panther being the first one, of course, but the one out of DC jumps out to me is either John Stewart, the Green Lantern. He's not the first Green Lantern, so that doesn't count. Black Lightning was kind of the first for DC, but still not a prominent superhero. So why not give the moniker of one of your biggest titles to a minority and just say, we're gonna run with it.
Right.
Marvel did it with Captain America, so why don't we just do it with Batman? Fuck it, we'll do it live.
I'm glad you brought that up. As far as the Falcon becoming Captain America, because this feels very similar to Marvel's All New, All Different, where you had Kamala Khan as Mrs. Marvel, Jane Foster as Thor, Falcon as Black Adam. There's change all over the Marvel universe. That feels like what we're going to be getting here. It's just interesting that I don't really think All New, All Different was a financial or critical success. So it seems odd for Warner Brothers and DC to be like, yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, they may be marketing. Since like the beauty about DC is they have so much digital content and so many like animated series that they pump out that they're really good at. That I feel like this could attract. I'm trying not to get into the main point of why I have a problem with this because I want to save it towards the end.
Okay.
But it sounds like they're trying to attract a new and younger audience because
that is always what they're trying to do.
Always.
That was the point of New 52. That was the point of Infinite Crisis, or excuse me, Crisis on Infinite Earths.
This is like balls deep into it. Like,
yes, it is.
You still have tangents of other backgrounds and all of those rebirths, all those restarts, But this one's like burning everything down.
Oh yeah, it shakes the foundation.
We are starting over, like legit starting over.
Somewhat, but they're still keeping, the roots of the classic characters there. I expect it to almost be a like Batman Beyond type situation where like Bruce is in the cave on the headset and computer guiding Luke. And that sounds really cool to me. And I think I've told you that if I ever got to write Batman, that's something along the lines that I would want to do as well. So I can't complain too much, I feel like, when I've been saying for years that, like, wouldn't it be cool if someone not named Bruce Wayne was Batman? And they're finally like, hey, guess what? Someone not named Bruce Wayne is going to be Batman. Now, it also reminds me somewhat of that weird period in DC's history, I think during New 52, when Gordon was Batman and he had the, like, robotic suit.
Yeah, so that was at the end of the New 52 storyline.
I really didn't like that. Really
that was
that storyline.
Right before they started doing the rebirth stuff or hinting to the rebirth stuff.
And Superman was depowered. He was just like, I think Grant Morrison was writing at that time, and he was just a guy in like jeans and a shirt, running around doing stuff. Yeah. And I remember talking with a comic shop owner at that time, and he was telling me how low the sales were for Batman and Superman. And he's like, well, I want to tell DC, like, I wonder why your sales are low when your two main characters aren't your two main characters at that point.
Yeah. Exactly.
So it's definitely a gamble. It could work out, We could be talking about this a year from now and been like, wow, what a, revolutionary idea, and just it's completely changed the way comics are, and it could be huge,
Yeah.
So I feel like we've mostly covered, who, what, where doesn't really matter. When is I know they were talking about doing this after an event that was going to come in the summer, so that probably means 5G would have dropped in the fall. But with coronavirus and then Diamond shutting down distribution for a month or so already, might have thrown a couple wrenches in there. So we'll see what comes of it. But mostly I want to talk about the why. And does this lead into your
yes
name?
It does.
Okay, great.
It does.
Great.
It does.
Here's what I think, and let me know if this tracks to you at all.
Okay.
So in a real life timeline, we have at&t buys Warner Brothers. Okay.
Gotcha.
Dan DiDio steps down as head of DC. And then an announcement of 5G and revolutionary change and stuff coming. And also the name itself, 5G. You see where I'm going here? This of corporate synergy. Of course. There's a new owner in town, and they come in and they want new ideas. And so they also want to link it to like a search algorithm. Like, hey, if people are looking for 5G, which is something that we as the phone company are launching here, in the next year, if they're searching for that, wouldn't it be nice if some of our other properties and stuff came up with it too? So let's have some DC articles linked there as well. But it feels somewhat to me like at&t being like, all right, we're going to try to shake things up and see what we can get out of comic book sales from that. But if this doesn't work, I'm not really interested in printing comic books.
Exactly.
Yeah. One Marvel movie makes the entire revenue for a year of Marvel Comics. Think about that.
Start turning out some DC movies that are actually pretty decent.
Yeah, let's hold our breath on that one.
Come on now. The last ones were pretty good.
Yeah, no, look, I'm there with you, and I'm really excited about the Batman. I think that's going to be great with Rob Pattinson. Yeah. But I could see that if this fails, at&t being like, we're not going to print comics anymore. We're going to go mostly digital. It's cheaper. It's easier to get it to the consumer. And if you want to print comics, that's fine. We will lease you our characters individually. So you can't buy DC, But you can buy the IDW. You can buy the rights to print a Superman story if you want. Marvel, you want to do a Wolverine Batman crossover? Cool. Pay us some money. You can get Batman for a set period of time, like you have shared rights with Sony. That's the way I see this going if 5G falls on its face.
I also think that, in fact, that like it's like a changing of the guard, almost like I'll put it into another perspective. When Lee Iacocca took over Ford and like totally changed the philosophy of what Ford was going for at this time, and then when he left to go to GM, it was like, oh, are we taking this one company and we're going to build it up the way we want it to be? Like, cause I still think that the new 52 was good. Like, I will go to my grave thinking that it was a good storyline. There was a lot of good stuff that came out of it, which led to something even better in Rebirth. Like I said, I haven't read Rebirth in the past, 6 or 7 months, but when the Rebirth first started, I was really intrigued with it. I got, 8 or 9 issues deep on all the main titles.
Classic.
Yeah. Right. And it was a different aspect of like, okay, now we have 2 Supermans. Oh, wait, the Superman from that fought originally is now back in this Superman from New 52. Anyway, so we won't get into
Superman.
Exactly, yeah.
I love that stuff.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool how they brought that history back into it, and like they had that rumor there was like actually like 2 Supermen, and now they're like actually here.
Well, there was a 52 Superman, but the new 52 Superman dies. And I'll go ahead and say it. I think Rebirth is one of my favorite eras of DC ever.
Yeah, definitely. It's like it's a good springboard to like what the next step would be.
The next generation. Yeah.
To boldly go. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Call Picard.
But the biggest problem I have with it is like Warner Brothers has already done this. Like Young Justice was supposed to be this show, this storyline of, hey, we're gonna edge out the old guard and bring in the new guard. Sure. And they got the 2 seasons in it that were really, really good, but they didn't really translate to the comics well, the animated series. And then now with the 3rd season that just came out, it brought everyone's hype back into it. And now you're going to go ahead and do a storyline in the comics where it is new heroes by different names when you already have that. And you have so many people. We've already seen a Damian Wayne Batman. We've already seen a Dick Grayson Batman. Yeah, we've already seen a Cassie technically as Wonder Woman. We've already seen different iterations of the Flash. To
be fair, we're not getting any of those things with the 5th generation.
I don't know if you read that article or part of the article where it was talking about how Captain Boomerang's son is taking over the mantle of the Flash, rumoredly to take over the mantle. Right. That was one of the left field ones where I was like, okay, this makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah. And I don't know who they're going to select as Green Lantern either, but
no, they were talking about the one from Justice League of America that was part of the New 52, but has now made it into Rebirth, or the girl that's in Rebirth now.
I don't think it'll be either of the grown lanterns. There's a teen lantern right now in the Young Justice book. She backwards engineers a ring. Like she wasn't really like gifted to it, as far as I'm aware. I haven't caught up on my Justice reading.
So she's
when she's introduced, it's like she's tech hacking a Green Lantern ring.
So battery. She's pretty much like Tony Stark.
Yeah. She is a Bendis creation, so she's very Riri Williams-ish.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
But I mean, it would be neat to see it. But I think with at&t taking over, it won't be. We're not going to print comics anymore. We're going to be like, this wasn't our fault. Who wants to buy this failing company? And they'll sell it for
no way in hell. No way in hell they sell. I don't think they sell DC in general. And I think the only company that would really buy it would be Marvel. And I feel like there has to be some antitrust, anti-monopoly laws there. Marvel owning Marvel.
Marvel wouldn't buy it. Marvel wouldn't buy it. Disney would buy it.
Then same thing. They would own 99% of the. Listen, I'm not a monopoly lawyer or anything here, but I'm pretty sure the parent company that owns both of like 99% of the comic book sales would get, I'm pretty sure that would be considered a monopoly. Now, whether people would care if it's a monopoly or not is another thing. It's not just laws. It's like, how much money are you bringing in? Yeah. But then once you do tie that to movies and such, then maybe it is.
The problem with
that's why I think they would do it with individual characters. Like leasing out, here's a contract for, $50 million. You can write a year's worth of Superman issues.
But I'm not. Well, obviously, we're not in boardrooms with AT&T and Warner Brothers, but that just doesn't seem right. Like, it doesn't seem like it would be feasible for them to do like, $50 million for 8 months, 2 years. In the long run, that's not going to make me as much money as if I sold the whole company to somebody for like.
Sure, but you keep it. It's why people rent things rather than selling a house.
I know that, but once you get to a point where this is backed by AT&T, they continually churn out bad products. But AT&T
wants to keep making the movies for it. That's why I feel like they will ignore the comic book publishing aspect of it, and that we are not interested in publishing books. We want to own these characters so we can make movies of them and then make $1 billion something from that. And Marvel, if you want to go make, print 100,000 comics, you're welcome to, but you gotta pay daddy a little slice.
And bad movie after bad movie after bad movie. You're Fantastic Four, and you sold all of your rights to every single part of that franchise that you own to another company who turns out money makers. And
look, it could be like what Marvel did in the 90s with their characters. We're selling Fox to the X-Men, Spider-Man to Sony. One studio didn't jump in and say, like, we're buying all your characters.
I know, but there was a vision that came from Stan Lee about doing that. There's no vision here. It's just AT&T come in, we're going to make these changes, and we're going to do it our way. And if it sucks, you know what? It sucks. And there's not going to be any repercussions because this is just a small part of their company. It's like, totally.
Yeah, we'll sell it and flip it for something. And
like, what's another conglomerate I could think of? It's like when Ford bought Land Rover. I'm sorry, I'm in the cars for like the past 2 months. So like when Ford bought Land Rover, they didn't really care. They wanted the moniker of title of it because they're like, oh, they're doing really well in profits. But in fact, when Ford started making Land Rover, the Land Rovers were shit. Nobody wants to buy a Land Rover from the years 2004 to now because they're shit. Like they're terrible, whatnot, and they ruined their reputation. Who would want to go see another Superman movie except for you and me, people like you and me? When
I think a lot of people, but I see your point that you can't continuously tarnish a brand through, let's say they kept making bad movies, I guess. Then that brand wouldn't be worth anything. I don't think comics have too much of an impact on what the general populace views as a positive or negative of a brand, because I think DC has had better comics for Marvel than for years.
Well, definitely. But what's going to get more people to see something that's their product, a movie or a comic? Marvel changed the game with all of their movies to where now Joe Schmo wants to go pick up a Iron Man comic. I don't have to read the whole storyline, but I want to pick one up and see it. So
I still am not convinced that person exists in the kind of like numbers that we are led to believe that they exist. That like goes to see like an Avengers movie and then walks into Barnes and Noble or something to buy an Avengers comic. I just I think that might be like 5% of the like populace that goes to see a Marvel movie that hadn't picked up a comic before. And like, hey, this is comic stuff. There's something here. And then goes into a store and buys one. I just we haven't seen the kind of boom in the market that like the kind of numbers that you would expect to see if that was true, especially when every Marvel movie is usually tied to some kind of comic that's coming out at the same time. Like, and even if it's rushed and bad, like, hey, Civil War is coming out. Let's rush out a Civil War 2 book with Brian Michael Bendis and see what happens.
Bro, Civil War 2 was decent.
No, dude, that book is garbage.
It's decent.
It's
We
bad.
got to fight. Fight.
But again, that's for that mythical person that just saw a movie that then walks into a comic book store and like, I don't think Infinity War is selling out on Amazon or anything after it was the biggest comic book movie of all time.
Well, no, but also that the original storyline came out in the 80s. No one's going to go buy an 80s comic book. They're going to go buy, if I kid you not, if Infinity War and Endgame came out and they were doing an exact same storyline in the comics that was done the same way that was going on in the theaters, that people would have bought it.
It would not have the massive sales spike that you would expect to see if larger than like a 5% of the population that's going to the movie then goes to buy a comic. I'll agree with you that maybe it's higher because it's tied to a very successful movie. But again, I think that's a small number of people that hadn't read a comic before and wouldn't have bought that comic anyways, that go and see a movie and say, hey, I like this Avengers stuff. Let me go buy an Avengers comic. That's all I'm saying. I just think that's I just think it's a small number and not entirely worth chasing. So I don't know. Part of me is excited for the fifth generation here, to see new heroes in these iconic roles, because that's something we've been asking for I have personally been asking for a long time, and I'm getting it, just not exactly in the kind of way that I wanted. Oh, now did you see who they rumoredly at least have coming on to write the Batman series?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I want to pull the article back up, but I want to close out of everything.
I can't remember his name, but it's the guy that wrote 12 Years a Slave. That's amazing to pull. Like that movie won an Oscar, right? It won Best Picture.
Yeah, like, Best Picture, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actor.
That's fucking insane, man. I can't think of any time when a writer off a Oscar-winning movie has then been brought into comics to write for something like Batman. I think Kevin Smith being pulled in, but Kevin Smith has never sniffed a Oscar.
Oh, no. I think one thing about AT&T doing this push is that there is going to be a lot of money going into everything.
That's true. Expect to see advertising ramp up here soon.
Advertising, expect to see big names like this one. Even in the future, like if they did want to make a movie, like for some reason, if they did want to relaunch the Justice League and they didn't have Henry Cavill playing Superman, they had another Superman, and they relaunched it with some different characters. Because did you see that Mira is getting recasted?
Yes.
So
because Amber Heard is a terrible person.
Well, she didn't have a performance in that movie at all, period. So
that's fair. That's fair. And also it looks like what's his name, Mr. Flash might be out too.
Ezra Miller.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy because they did that tie crossover in the Crisis of Infinite Earths.
Yeah, but that was before he like choke slammed a fan. Did you see that video?
I've not seen that video.
Okay, yeah.
It doesn't surprise me.
I can't really tell. Like at first, it looks like they're both kidding. Regardless, he took it too far. But it looks like he is done with the Flash because of that.
But he should. In my opinion, he should never be casted for that role.
No, I agree. He's not that great as Barry Allen, anyways, and I'm not that upset to lose him.
Yeah. But like I said, deep pockets go a long way. And
that's very true, and I'm glad to have that backing. So we'll see. I mean, something like this, at least with this kind of scale, has not really been attempted, and the kind of talent that they're pulling in for it. So, I'm of the belief that a good writer can turn, any story into a compelling story. Whether that transitions to sales is another point. But again, with this being spearheaded by AT&T, I fully expect to see news coverage of this in the same way. Do you remember when Superman died? That was like on the nightly news.
Oh yeah.
Right. It was
like
your local. Yeah. Well, and it's fucking Superman. Like, your local news is reporting like DC Comics will kill their longest running character, Superman, and blah, 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 blah. So, I fully expect to see, your local news anchors talking about like this coming month, DC debuts a Black Batman. More tonight at 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally expect to see that. And if the rumor for a LGBTQ character is announced as Wonder Woman, I expect that to catch the same kind of headlines that the Batman would. So,
yeah.
I don't know. As a DC fan and as just a physical comics fan in general, I hope this is successful so that both of those things continue. But it's a big gamble.
Definitely.
It's a big gamble. Do you have anything else to say on the matter? Or you kind of spoke your piece there?
Spoke my piece because I don't want to I don't know. I feel like I do a lot of shitting on when we have new ideas come out. I'm like, I don't want to be the old guy and be like, oh no, Batman should be like this. And
I'm not gonna lie. At first, that was me. 100%. At first, I was like, get off my lawn. That's not music. But the more I kind of thought about it, I was like, well, this is something that I have wanted for a while, and they're finally giving it to me. It's just not exactly the way that I wanted it. But, I don't want to be like those people, again, that are on Twitter bitching about the Batman movie before we've even seen a trailer.
Exactly. Well, that's not my Joker. My Joker's Heath Ledger. Jared Leto's terrible.
Jared Leto is terrible.
I mean, it's but it was like we never gave him a shot. Granted, we knew what we were going to get. Some of us knew what we were going to get.
I mean, I think there's a world where Jared Leto could be really good as the Joker.
Yeah,
but
it was
that
not
way
movie.
They went with him in Suicide Squad was not. That's not it. That ain't it. So yeah, I'm excited. I will miss the stories of John as a kid, but they've already really gone away with that after aging him up. And I think it's a shame that his Batman won't be Damian, who he would have, grown up beside. But that's another interesting question. And that's something that the show Batman Beyond did very well, is like, hey, all these people that were involved in the Bat family and stuff, where are they?
Yeah.
What is Damian Wayne doing when someone not named Wayne is wearing the cowl?
Yeah.
Is he Roz? Is he now the League of Shadows?
Say. Yeah, he took the thunder right out of him.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's cool. He could be this arch nemesis now, and they could both be wearing bat costumes, and they meet on the street, and what are you doing? I'm Batman.
Right.
You've never been Batman.
See him wearing the demon's head, golden statue thing, but having some kind of bat across his chest still.
Yeah. I get what you're saying.
Right.
I just couldn't see him in the green and whatnot like Ross did.
Right. Yeah, not classic, the animated series Ross, but something like that. They could do something. So yeah, I guess to summarize it, we're excited to see where it goes, but cautiously optimistic.
Yes.
And mostly
riding that line.
Funny, I guess.
Riding that line all the way till it prints out.
There we go. Well, Mike, let's not wait 8 months again.
Yes, no,
to get you back on the show, and maybe we can start doing more Skype stuff if especially if the in-person thing is hard to we're both so busy. Mike's a healthcare professional, so his life has been a little turned upside down since all this too.
I have a cape now. Apparently,
I've seen that.
I have a cape.
You should start wearing it to work. That's good.
I would probably get looks if I wore one.
You can cut it up and make masks. Right.
I don't want to do that. Don't need to get started on that soapbox.
All right, I won't. Well, Mike, glad to have you back, man. We need to do it again soon.
Definitely, it was good to be back.
Good to have you. So, yeah, listeners, just keep it tuned here to Grassroots Comics for any kind of news that comes out in the future about this, and we'll see you later, kiddos.
This has been a Grassroots Comics production. Da-da-da! So what's your story?
Well, some kind of silly cartoon.
You got a problem with cartoons?